I need both my hands on anything, so I just.
To order.
You're good. You don't need it.
Ms. Lenny, will you call the roll, please?
Arthur Burns.
Here?
Robin Hanger.
Here.
Dennis Smith.
Here.
Tony Casada.
Here.
Mike Meyer.
Here. Please join us in the invocation.
Father, we thank you for this day. We ask you to help us to lead our citizens and represent our citizens in orderly fashion and do the best we can for our city. I ask you to be with those that are sick in our country, Lord. Just guide us along the way. Thank you and amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item of business will be the minutes from July 12th. Are there any changes, additions, deletions of any sort? The only one I would request is we could get that E out of the middle of my name.
Stands for excellent.
All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
You have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carries. Our first item of business is an agenda item. Our first agenda item is a variance. I'm doing well here. 826 Daytona Avenue. Mr. Walker, would you like to tell us something about it?
Yes, Chairman, Board. As stated, this is a variance request for 826 Daytona Avenue. Charles Morris is the applicant, and he's requesting a variance from the requirements of Section 114-742A2 that requires that an accessory structure in all zoning districts be located behind the principal structure on a lot. And he's making this request in order to place or keep a 121 square foot gazebo on his parcel. The parcel is zoned R3, which is single family zoning, and it's located on the west side of Daytona Avenue, approximately 300 feet north of 8th Street, and it's more particularly known as 826 Daytona Avenue. This home is in a subdivision that is part of the Mason-Carswell subdivision, which was created back in 1925. The lot contains a home that was originally built in 1935. On April 6, 2021, an approximately 121 square foot gazebo was delivered and installed in the front yard of the home at 826 Daytona Avenue. Now, Section 114-742(2A2) of the Land Development Regulations state clearly in part that accessory structures and uses in all zoning districts are to be located behind the principal structure on the lot. So on April 7th, 2021, the homeowner, Mr. Morris, was cited by code enforcement for having a gazebo installed in front of the home, and this was done without a permit. On April 15th, Mr. Morris came in and he did apply by submitting a permit application for the gazebo. Now, in order for staff to consider approving the permit request, the applicant would need a variance. And this variance would be to approve the location of the gazebo in the front of the home. So here we are now, the applicant has submitted a variance request. Staff did speak with the folks who delivered and installed the gazebo, and after talking with them, the staff is convinced that the applicant did make a good faith effort with regard to inquiring whether or not a permit was required prior to the gazebo's delivery. And Mr. Morris was not given accurate information by those who delivered and installed the gazebo. Again, the home was built in 1935. The home was placed less than 2 feet from the rear yard property line, so this means effectively that the home does not have a backyard. It's not really possible in any way for them to put a gazebo of any size in that less than 2-foot space. The gazebo is purely decorative in nature. It doesn't serve as a shed or storage of any type. Mr. Morris does sit in the gazebo with his dogs and enjoys the outdoors. The gazebo also does not encroach into any of the required setbacks, so it's non-conforming only with respect to where it is, but it does meet the front yard setback. The code requires that the adjacent neighbors, the neighbors in front and on each side, be notified when this type of a variance request is made. And the two neighbors directly in front of the applicant who have a direct view of the gazebo, as well as the neighbor abutting to the south, all signed a document stating that they are not only aware of this variance request, but that they have no objection to the gazebo being where it is. The neighbor to the north was sent a certified letter, return receipt requested, and they did not respond in any negative fashion with regard to the gazebo. So simply put, if the variance request is granted, the applicant will be permitted to keep the gazebo in the front yard. If it's denied, then the applicant, Mr. Morris, would be required to remove the gazebo. Now, in order to grant the variance request, the commission will need to find that it meets the requirements of Section 82-317, and there are 6 criteria. The first criteria is that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, as distinguished from the applicant himself, and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. The home on this property was built in 1935. It was put approximately 2 feet away from the rear property line, thereby eliminating the backyard. There are 15 homes on Daytona Avenue between 8th Street and 9th Street, and this subject home is the only one that does not have a backyard. So it's staff's opinion that it does meet the first criteria. The second criteria is that special conditions and circumstances did not result from the actions of the applicant. Again, this was platted back in 1925. In 1935 was the first time that the home was placed on the rear property line. That was not done by the applicant. Criteria 3 states that granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this subpart to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. This is debatable. It really depends on how you look at it. From staff's point of view, it does not give the applicant any special privilege. Although he'll be able to put the gazebo out front, whereas most other folks will not, it's because he is the only one that does not have a backyard. Other folks have the backyard that they can enjoy. In his case, he does not. So staff feels that he meets the third criteria and that he's not getting any special privilege. Most folks are able to enjoy their front yard or the backyard. He doesn't have a backyard, so he has the gazebo in the front. That's what he's requesting. Criteria 4, that a literal interpretation of the privileges of this subpart would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of this subpart and work an unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. Staff feels that it would be a hardship on Mr. Morris to not be able to have a gazebo when he does not have a backyard. 5, that the variance granted is the minimum variance necessary to make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Again, as stated, the applicant doesn't have a backyard. They're requesting to keep a 121 square foot gazebo on the front that does meet the front yard setbacks. And the last criteria, that granting the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this subpart and the city's comprehensive plan, and that such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. This does not go against any of the general intent or purpose of the comprehensive plan and is not injurious to the area. So staff finds that the applicant has met all of the criteria stated above in the grant, above to grant the requested variance. Staff recommends with conditions, therefore, approval of the request for a variance from the requirements of Section 114-742 2A2, requiring that accessory structures and uses in all zoning districts be located behind the principal structure on the lot, as applied to a 121 square foot gazebo on a parcel in the R3 Single Family Zoning District located on the west side of Daytona Avenue, approximately 300 feet north of 8th Street, and more particularly known as 826 Daytona Avenue. These are the conditions that staff is recommending. Staff does recommend approval, but with these conditions. One, that the gazebo cannot be enlarged or modified, nor can it be replaced with anything but another gazebo of the same size or smaller. Two, that the variance applies to the gazebo only and to nothing else. Three, that the gazebo is decorative only and can be used for sitting and enjoying the outdoors in a manner similar to a porch. It cannot be used for storage or any other purpose. Four, the gazebo must meet all setback requirements for the R3 zoning district and can't be moved to another location without going through the variance process again. And lastly, that the gazebo must be well-maintained, shall not be allowed to deteriorate, rot, become a home to vermin, or otherwise become a source of blight, or it shall become the subject of code enforcement action by the city. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Yes, sir? Would you like to
Yes, sir.
address Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Please do.
Mr. Walker, what is the setback in that area for the front yard?
25 feet.
And this is 25 feet back? When I look at the pictures, it doesn't look like it. That's why I was asking.
Yes, there's actually, can you go through, Laney? Actually, I may not have it. There's a picture
That's the picture I
of
was
the
looking at from the bottom.
staff, actually, one of the code enforcement officers, actually with a tape measure out there, and it is, it is further than 25
So if
feet.
they were building a house on that lot today, it could be where the front of the gazebo is.
Yes.
How did, do you know how code enforcement became aware of it? Did someone complain?
I'm not sure if staff, you're saying no, they,
It was just a drive-by.
It was a
we
drive-by.
saw
Just a
it.
drive-by?
yes.
Any further questions? Mr. Walker?
I don't see a tape
Is
measure.
there anyone that would like to speak to this in the audience? Okay. Well, with no more questions to Mr. Walker, no one to speak in the audience, I would be willing to entertain a motion. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion and accept it as read.
Make a motion. So your motion is to take the staff's recommendation, including the 5 conditions that they've set. All right. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Yes, sir.
Please.
My concern about this is that it may set a precedent, that the people who misled the applicant that the gazebo was okay could point to this property and say, look, your neighbor down the street has a gazebo. There's plenty of room in your front yard. You should buy one from us too.
That's, whenever staff looks at these issues, one of the first things that comes to staff's mind is, does this set a precedence? Is this something that other people can point to and use to support actions that are not conforming with the code? This case is very, very specific in that this home does not have a backyard. So there are very, very few homes, and I did look and went through this neighborhood and other areas, and this is the first time in I've only been here 4 years, but it's the first time in my 4 years and looking at many variances that I've seen a home that has no backyard. So even if someone were to come and say, well, our backyard is only 6 foot wide, well, then get a 5 foot wide gazebo if you want, but it will have to go in the backyard. So from that perspective, it's not staff's opinion that this is going to be a problem for this board or for the city commission or the city in general. There are very, very few people that do not have a backyard. And even if they don't have a backyard. They would then need to show that that was a situation that was created prior to our code, in a platted neighborhood prior to our code. And then, again, it's purely decorative in nature. So no one can come and say, well, I want to do a shed, I want to do a storage unit. If there's someone that doesn't have a backyard and all of that was created well before our code, then yes, they could come to this board and ask for a decorative gazebo.
May I ask? 'Cause
Yes, you have one more.
when I look at the picture that was up just a minute ago, the house, the aerial shot, please. The house right behind them also doesn't have a backyard.
Right.
So those folks could come in and ask to put a gazebo in their front yard.
If the circumstances are the same, then we would look at all of the circumstances for the same. But this little piece right here, that's the only one that I was able to see in looking through. But you're right. Are there maybe a few and far between? Yes.
Well, I'm going to vote for it just so that it can go and the city commission can decide, because they can still turn it down if they find it's a precedent-setting thing.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I point out to you, Mr. Burns, that if you look at this aerial, that the yard behind it, while it doesn't have a backyard, it has a tremendous side yard on both sides. That red line that you see to the north
Yeah.
on that is
So
the
they could
property
put one.
line, and I can't see the one to the south.
You're correct.
So that would just be something that I would take into account.
It just
Yeah, this
gives me a
one-
little bit of heart.
Sides.
This one shows the north
I
and the
understand.
south.
I understand. Sir?
Chairman, that one shows the north and the south.
All right. Okay, thank you. All right. Any more discussion? No, ma'am, we're done with that part. I'm sorry. You missed your opportunity. All right, we've had a motion and a second. Shall we call the question?
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Tony Casada,
Yes.
Arthur Burns,
Yes.
Robin Hanger,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. Thank you, motion carries. Item number 2. When is, did you tell them when the next meeting is?
Yes, they will actually be going to the 28th.
28th?
Yes,
All right,
City
thank you.
Commission on the 28th. It's in the letter I gave you, that you'll be going to City Commission on the 28th, but I'll call you, Mr. Morris, and just to refresh the time and all. It's at 6 o'clock, here, the same location, on the 28th. All right, but I'll give you a call before then. All right, absolutely.
Mr. Walker, are you ready to introduce the next item?
Yes, sir.
And may I say something before you do? I've done this Mr. Bonarigo's project that's come before us. That's my survey in the back, so I've done survey work for him. I just want to make everyone aware of that. All right.
But you're not abstaining, right?
Excuse me?
You're not abstaining, though? 'Cause there-
No, sir, no.
You're
No,
just
I
letting
don't
them know.
think
Okay.
that I
There's
need
no
to.
financial
Right.
pecuniary gain on this, okay.
This request is to annex a parcel that's approximately 1.23 acres in size. It is located approximately 300 feet west of North Nova Road on the north side of 8th Street, and the address is 112 8th Street. This particular application for annexation does precede an application that will be for rezoning and for a comprehensive plan future land use amendment. The parcel is currently vacant, residential. It directly abuts property that is in the city of Holly Hill. That property is owned commercial corridor and has a commercial future land use. And the property to the north is zoned industrial 1, wholesale light industrial, and it has a wholesale commercial and industrial future land use. So the applicant has submitted for a voluntary annexation, and they will be asking, when they do submit for a rezone and future land use amendment, for uses that will allow light industrial and personal storage uses. Florida statute section 171.044 presents the requirements of voluntary annexation, and some of those are that the parcel is contiguous to the city limit, the annexation will result in a city limit that is reasonably compact and does not create an enclave. So those are the two main requirements for voluntary annexation, and staff's opinion that this annexation will not create an enclave. There are no financial impacts other than the fact that it will increase some taxable value to the city. So staff will recommend that City Commission annex a parcel of land approximately 1.23 acres located approximately 300 feet west of North Nova Road on the north side of 8th Street and more specifically known as 1012 8th Street. Thank you.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Walker? Hearing none, is there someone who would like to speak for this project? No, you don't need to speak, Mr. Bonrigo. Is there someone who was here to speak against it? No. Okay, with no one to speak for it or no one to speak against it, I would entertain a motion. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Or any discussion? All right. Please call the question.
Arthur Burns,
Yes.
Robin Hanger,
Yes.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Tony Casada,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Then they'll also come on the 28th, Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
3 more years, we'll make it to 95.
And large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. Mr. Walker, would you like to tell us about that, please?
Yes, this is actually a request by the city's Community Development Department to approve a large-scale comprehensive plan text amendment. And what this would do is create a property rights element. It would add goals, objectives, and policies, and its primary purpose would be to ensure that private property rights are considered in local decision-making, and this is in accordance with House Bill 59. Currently, under Florida law, local governments such as Holly Hill adopt a comprehensive plan, and this is really designed to control and direct growth and development within our city. House Bill 59 was signed by Governor DeSantis in June of 2021, actually June 29th of 2021, and it became effective on July 1st of 2021. And what House Bill 59 does is it adds sections 163.31776I to the Florida statutes. So each local government now is required to adopt a property rights element into its comprehensive plan. House Bill 59 also came with a model property rights element that could be used when formulating this new element within the comprehensive plan. And staff, based on that model version, proposes the following language. So it would create 10 would be the new property rights element. The goal would be to respect judicially acknowledged and constitutionally protected private property rights. Objective 1.1, the following policies are to ensure that private property rights shall be considered in local decision-making. Policy 1.1.1, the right of a property owner to physically possess and control his or her interest in the property, including easements, leases, or mineral rights. Policy 1.1.2, the right of a property owner to use, maintain, develop, and improve his or her property for personal use or for the use of any other person subject to state law and local ordinances. Policy 1.1.3, the right of the property owner to privacy and to exclude others from the property to protect the owner's possessions and property. And lastly, Policy 1.1.4, the right of a property owner to dispose of his or her property through sale or gift. So staff does recommend approval of the proposed amendment to create a property rights element in accordance with House Bill 59, Florida statutes. And that concludes staff's presentation.
You need us to adjourn, get a drink of water or something? No? All right. Do we have any questions? Yes, Mr. Burns.
Chairman, I have a question to Mr. Simpson. Does policy 1.1.2 have any bearing on law enforcement as far as, 'cause I'm trying to figure out why this is needed. It seems to be that all of this stuff is already protected, but,
Well, it's needed because state law now mandates you put this in there.
Sure.
And it has to be in there either latter of when we do our next year amendment or when we do our next comprehensive plan amendment. And as Brian indicated, the annexation you just considered will be followed up by a comprehensive plan amendment. So we couldn't do that comprehensive plan amendment that's coming if we don't put this language in here, and the state says this is the language we want you to have. Now,
And this is excuse me.
I meant 1.1.3.
2 says,
I meant 1.1.3,
3, okay.
you know. You can't come on my property and stop
Yeah,
my
I mean,
house of
it's-
ill repute because I'm protected under 1.1.3.
I don't know if that's this is dealing with development activity as opposed to trespass.
Okay.
So this could be, when it says you exclude others from the property, that could also mean in privacy. People can't discharge water onto your property.
Okay.
Well, that's not a crime per se, but this is something they recognizing that you have the ability to have privacy and exclude others from coming onto your property. And you may have situations where you got to balance the issues of prescriptive easements and all these other things that come into this, so,
All right.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Did the state give us this language verbatim?
yes.
That's what I thought. Okay. Thank you.
You may hear other cities adopting different language. The Thousand Friends of Florida sent out something that was much bigger than this, and Brian and I went over it, and they had this language, and then they had a whole bunch of other language that really went the other direction. I mean, talked about voting requirements, you know, all these different things that they recommended you do. And I read this to me is geared more towards the applicant. And that's the way I read it. When you read what the Thousand Friends of Florida, they had to put theirs in there, but then everything else they added was really against the applicant. It was promoting other people's rights to stop what you're doing with your property. And Brian and I both agreed that we only recommend that this city adopt what the law requires,
Okay.
so.
This isn't the first time that they've done this to us while I've been on this board. So,
It won't be the last time.
by no means. By no means.
Unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
All right. Are there any more questions? Hearing none, do I have a recommendation? Or
Recommend,
motion, excuse me.
motion to approve the way it is.
So I have a motion to approve as the staff has presented it.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call the question.
Robin Hanger,
Yes.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Arthur Burns,
Yes.
Tony Casada,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. Motion carries. All right. Now, if I can find my agenda. All righty. Do we have any old business to take up?
No, sir.
All right. Do you have anything that either of you two need to communicate to us? Do we have a date for our next meeting?
Yes, it will be the first Monday.
October 4th.
October 4th.
October 4th, okay.
Halloween themed, everybody wear your costume.
Yes.
Did I say that out loud?
And the meeting after, the November meeting, do you have a date for the November meeting? Just a curiosity more than
November
anything
1.
else.
No. I can't be here.
For the 4th or
For the
November?
1st, November 1st. I won't be available.
Right.
I can, we can work out a time.
Okay.
um,
I will not be here. I'm
this
leaving
month.
on November the 5th.
November the 5th.
That's a Friday, so I'm thinking to Thursday, Thursday, Wednesday, 2, 1. So it looks like it would be November 1, right? Is that the date? November 1, that Monday?
November 1 is a Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about the 8th?
Fine.
Does that work for you, Chairman?
I'm leaving the 5th and I'm returning about 9 days later, 13th or 14th, something like that.
Okay.
We've had meetings without a single member before, so we just have to choose whether it's the chairman or the vice chairman.
That'd be something.
We'll work on it we can work on the 4th.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. All right. Now, if there's nothing else, I would entertain, yes,
I have
sir?
a question about on the 1st, or if you were to do it on the next weekend, which would be the, whatever it is,
The 8th?
if he
Sorry.
wasn't here and I was running it, and at that time, my deal comes up with Zev Cohen's, would there still be enough to proceed with that? If that is not the case, then I'll make myself available on the 1st.
You would still have 3.
Okay,
So-
so they would be able to approve it.
Well, sure.
You'd have Mr. Casada, Mr. Burns,
Okay.
and Smith.
All right,
And one of them would have to take over as chair.
okay,
'Cause Mr. Meyer wouldn't be here and you'd recuse yourself.
right, okay. I just want to make sure, because I can't hold that up, so I would just keep in mind, I would
I
make
need to
myself.
I need to get something.
You'll be getting
Well,
this,
I understand that you're also hoping that we have a full board,
Right.
absent the chairman. If one of them can't make it, then your item couldn't be.
oh, the other 3 will be here. They will be in their chair anyhow.
'Cause, yeah, that's gonna
We will
require
zoom that meeting
a
from,
rezoning comp-
you'll
I need
catch me
that.
in the,
I know, I'm back in town and I'm working
what do
on
they
that.
call that?
Okay.
I know.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
and it turns out it does require a second. There's just no debate. Is there a second? Second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's go.